What is going on, Peep Squad? My name is Luke, and today I'm joined by my co-host Mike.
Hello, everybody.
And we're going to be talking about the Scream franchise. The latest movie came out about 2 weeks ago. It's the biggest movie in America. I was just checking a few days ago what other movies were released in January, and there's not really anything.
Yeah, I didn't really have much competition, did it?
Yeah, one of the reasons why it did so well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're just going to go through and talk about movie by movie, and then we're going to give our ranking of the whole franchise at the end.
Yeah.
So let's just start with the original 1996 Scream. It's kind of easy to overlook the impact that this movie had when it was released.
True.
But after it was released to for the next almost 10 years, there was a whole bunch of clones of it, like Final Destination. I know what you did last time.
Yeah.
The Faculty.
That's true.
All that kind of stuff. And so that's probably my least favorite era, so to speak, of horror.
Yeah.
So
it's very dated and kind of cheesy.
Yeah, I do really like Scream, but it was really smart with the self-awareness, but with all those clones, it's they're trying to be self-aware, but they didn't really do the legwork, so you said, it just comes off as
it was really the only one of the era that was truly self-aware, and
right.
Frankly, it was kind of, I mean, as far as I know, it's not like I know everything about horror movies, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was kind of the first one, at least the first major one, that was pretty self-aware and almost breaking the fourth wall and everything.
Yeah, it was, at the very least, it was the first mainstream horror movie to do that.
And it was kind of almost in some respects a parody without being a parody movie,
right.
Those, they even made parody movies of Scream, those Scary Movie. Or at least the first one.
Yeah, and it's like you mentioned, it's kind of making fun of the horror genre while at the same time it's
still being a slasher movie.
And it kind of embraces it as well.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes fun of itself.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, I feel what I found really funny the first time I saw it, which was, I think just over a year ago now, I think. I wasn't expecting, it wasn't quite slapstick, but almost when the victims actually fight back. And sometimes the ghost face ends up being thrown around the room or sprawling around, over furniture or something. That was I did not expect that, and I thought it was pretty funny. Definitely unique for the slasher genre.
Yeah, normally they would just run away, but Ghostface was the first killer, at least as far as I'm aware of, that got hurt a lot, and like you mentioned, he's getting beer thrown at him, he's getting hit in the head with the refrigerator door and stuff
and wasn't
like that.
invincible like Freddy or Jason or even Michael Myers.
And another thing that makes this Scream unique is that it's focused more on the main characters and less on the villain.
True.
So the Nightmare on Elm Street is all 9 movies or whatever, they all have Freddy, but the main characters always change. Same with Friday the 13th and Halloween even to some extent as well.
Yeah, I think Halloween, they would often go back to Laurie Strode, but not at first. For a while they tried to make sequels without her until they realized it doesn't really work without the whole Michael and Laurie dynamic.
These protagonists are so endearing, for lack of a better term. I love David Arquette and Courtney Cox and I don't remember the guy who played Randy, but I liked him too.
Randy. Yeah, right.
Jamie Kennedy. His name is Jamie Kennedy. And then Neve Campbell to a certain extent as well. I will say that I don't really like Sydney as much as the other characters, but she kind of grows on you over time.
Yeah, for sure. Especially considering she kind of gets the brunt of everything for the most part.
And I think that this first movie is one of the only ones where both of the killers are really good. Because in most of the movies you'll have one really good one and the other one's okay.
Yeah.
But in this first one you have Billy and Stu, and they're both really fun to watch, and their dynamic together was really good.
Right. And in the other movies, like you said, there definitely seems to be almost a villain sidekick dynamic almost, where one kind of takes the back seat for the actual big bad villain. And yeah, the first one, Billy and Stu were pretty even, I would say, even though Stu is more outwardly a psycho.
Billy is he's actually has a motivation, but Stu's just there because he just wanted to be
just a psycho. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. I will mention that one the one scene where Tatum gets crushed by the garage door, that's something that my family has a lot of contention over because they're like, that doesn't make any sense, and so we just talk about that a whole bunch. But,
it is kind of dumb, just the fact that, like, I mean, as far as I know, those doors don't really have that much force when they come down. Like, definitely not enough to, like, hurt somebody, you know, like, break somebody's spine or something, like the way they acted like it did.
But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this first movie, unless you had anything to add.
Not really, it's just, I mean, it is pretty iconic. I think it's probably my favorite, but we'll get to that later.
Scream 2, I will say that I really did like the opening at the movie theater.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. And that is something I like about the whole franchise, is like kind of like the self-referential stab franchise. And it's basically just like shot-for-shot remakes of the previous movies, especially the first one. Yeah,
I love how as the series progresses, I love how they incorporate the stab movies into the Scream kind of universe. It's really fun. Yeah. But yeah, the opening scene with the movie theater, I like how like everyone in the movie theater is dressed up like Ghostface, and so when the character dies, they're like, oh, it's just some kind of stunt.
Right.
That was really fun. But I think that, like I mentioned earlier, the killers in this one are probably the weakest. You have Billy's mom, who
just sort of like appears out of nowhere.
Right. But at the part at the end where she's like, I'm here to kill you, Sidney, like she has some kind of good moments. But then the other one, Mickey, it was... Like, when he took off his mask, I was like, who's this guy again?
Yeah.
Because he was like, he only has a couple scenes in the beginning.
He's kind of just like an annoying douche the whole movie. You just kind of like don't really pay attention to him. Wasn't it like Timothy Olyphant?
Yes, I think it was.
That's like the only reason that like he stood out to me, is because I've seen him in a lot of other stuff. But yeah, it's true. They didn't really like develop him much. Yeah. I honestly don't even remember his motivation. What was it? Like, I know Billy's mom wanted to kill Sidney because, you know, she killed her son or whatever, but I kind of forget his motivation.
He wanted to blame it on the movies, which is something that in real life we see a lot.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting, like on paper, but I don't think they executed it very well.
Yeah, that did kind of suck. At least I wasn't a huge fan of Rainda getting killed off, because he was one of the most entertaining characters, honestly.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And on that note, like the one-off characters in this movie, like the ones that show up, like you have the roommate, you have her boyfriend, like they're not really all that interesting. I do like they kind of explore Cotton Weary a little bit more. I really like his character.
Yeah, it's kind of cool. They had Liev Schreiber play him. Yeah, they do like a little bit more in this than like obviously the first one, but unfortunately he doesn't really go anywhere in the whole franchise. I think out of pretty much all the movies, like there's always, you know, the main cast, like Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette. You know, they're the main people. But there's always like a supporting cast, and this is probably like the weakest supporting cast. Like you said, like the characters aren't that interesting. The actors are like decent, but they don't really give them anything to do, and they're definitely not as like. I wouldn't say like the ones in the first one were that famous, but that was kind of their, you know, claim to fame. But the supporting cast in this movie just kind of like didn't do anything in the movie or outside of this movie, really. Besides Timothy Olyphant.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that this movie kind of. One thing I really like about it is it kind of develops the relationship between Dewey and Gale.
Yeah.
Because in the first one they're kind of antagonistic, but then they kind of they kind of develop the relationship a little bit more. We'll just move on to part 3 then. Yeah. This is the one was actually in Hollywood. I'll point this out right on top. A lot of people have a problem with that voice changing device.
Oh.
And like. I do too, but I think that like this movie is just I had a lot of fun with it, so I'm willing to forgive some of those weaker points.
Right, like what aspect of the voice changer? Because they use them in the first two.
Well, no, but in this movie they have the voice changer that can make it sound like anybody.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that's definitely very far-fetched. But like, you know, whatever.
No, exactly, and a lot of people have a problem with Roman because he says that he kind of set up the events of all 3 movies.
Right, yeah.
I don't really have an issue with that as much because reading like a lot of comic books and watching stuff like that, like the big puppet master trope is kind of something that happens a lot, so it's like I'm pretty used to it at this point.
I think I remember watching it. I did watch this about like a few months after I saw 1 and 2. I think I had a hard time finding the third one until it was on HBO Max, but Yeah, I remember them revealing the killer and like revealing that he was like Sydney's half brother or whatever. And I was sitting there thinking, like, you know, I don't mind this reveal. It's more interesting than I expected. But I can tell, like I was thinking, you know, I'm sure fans have probably had a problem with it because of, like, the retcons and, you know, basically anytime you try to change a franchise, especially with a retcon, fans freak out, you know?
For sure. But I really like kind of that whole, like, movie within a movie dynamic where they're on the set. Yeah. They're interacting with the people that play them in the movie. And it's just, this is probably the most, like, silly movie in the franchise with all the cameos and the whole thing with not Carrie Underwood, the woman who played Princess Leia. She was in it. She had a little cameo.
Oh, Carrie Fisher.
Carrie Fisher. Yeah, that's right. I don't know how I forgot her name. But yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's close enough. Yeah, but it's like it's really silly, but I did have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, my main issue I think I have with this movie is more just like at the beginning, the way they just sort of like kill off Cotton, kind of for no reason. Like it feels like he's just starting to like become a character in the franchise, and then they're just like, nah, just kidding. First 5 minutes, he's the first kill, you know. And it definitely didn't seem like it was necessary, like for the whole revenge plot of this guy.
That's one thing that kind of comes up a lot is it's hard to tie the opening kill with the rest of the movie. Yeah. Like in the first one, Casey Becker was actually Stu's ex-girlfriend, so that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
But like, why Mrs. Loomis and Mickey would want to attack that movie theater, I'm not really sure, or why Roman would want to attack Cotton, I'm not really sure about that either.
Right. I think probably in the second one it was more just the Timothy Olyphant characters, you know, the whole theme of blaming the violence on the movies. But yeah, the Cotton murder didn't really make any sense from what I remember.
So yeah, I do like the end of this movie. How I think it ties off the trilogy very well with kind of Sydney kind of moving on and Gale and Dewey getting engaged and stuff like that. But yeah, let's jump 11 years into the future and let's talk about Scream 4.
I was gonna say this franchise is kind of interesting because the last two entries were both like, you know, several years later entries that were probably just kind of a crash grab / franchise revival. I think there's like 10 years between, or like 11 years between 3 and 4, and then like another 10, 11 years between 4 and 5.
One thing I really like about Part 4 is the opening, how it's like Scream, Stab 5, Stab 6, Stab 7, and it kind of goes into Scream.
Yeah, I really liked that. And it showed like different audiences, and like one girl was complaining, like basically, you know, representing like the criticisms of the Scream franchise, being like, oh, I hate all that meta crap. It makes, you know, it makes the movie not scary or something, you know, all that stuff is pretty funny.
A lot of people have issue with that, but I loved it.
Yeah, and they even mention it later, or like at one point they say like, wait a minute, so if the beginning of Stab 7 is somebody watching Stab 6, then where's Stab 6? So wouldn't Stab 7 be Stab 6?
Yeah, so this picks up 11 years later, like you mentioned. Stewie and Gale, his name's Dewey, not Stewie. Dewey and Gale have been married for a while. He's the sheriff. He's his deputy. Hicks is like his understudy, I guess. And
right, man, I freaking hate her. Just putting that just putting that out there. She kind of sucks.
Sydney has published her book, and Gale's kind of jealous of that because she's having like a writer's block situation.
Right.
I really like how the characters have like evolved over the period of time, because a lot of times with big movie franchises, actors will kind of just fall into one character, and like even though movies will go on, they'll just play the same character. There's not really much evolution or change going on. But that's one thing I really like about these movies, is that like you can see the kind of the growth of the three main characters.
I think it's the most prevalent probably in the fourth one, because like all three of them have moved on. Like in 3, Sydney especially was still kind of trapped in like, you know, sort of like survival mode, whereas in the fourth one she's moved on. You know, she has a best-selling book. Gale and Dewey are finally, you know, married and together. I did like that too.
I will say that the side characters in 4 are quite a bit better than 2 and 3.
Yes.
I do like Rory Culkin, I think his name is.
Yeah, I was looking at him. I was like, he's got to be a Culkin, but he can't be the, you know, Macaulay or the one that's in whatever, the HBO series with a terrible family or something. I forget what it's called.
Was it Kieran McCulkin?
Kieran, yeah, something like that. McCulkin, yeah.
Yeah, because he was the one in Scott Pilgrim vs.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah, and he's in the series Succession. That's what I was talking about. That's what's made him most famous recently, I think. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking, like, this guy looks too young to be either of those, but he's like their younger brother.
Yeah, I do. This movie kind of tackles the idea of like a remake, and I think that was something that was really prevalent at the time, was like a beat for beat remake, whereas we'll talk about Scream 5 later. But so I really like how they kind of tackled that. The one character I really, really liked was Kirby. I don't remember her actress's name, but I liked that character.
Was that Hayden Panettiere?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that was her.
Yeah, she was pretty good.
Yeah,
yeah,
I liked that one boyfriend character named Trevor, and everyone's just like dunking on him the whole time. Throughout the whole movie.
That was pretty
funny.
That was
really funny.
Like he was like he was kind of annoying, but like holy crap, yeah. They were like, why the hell are you here? Get the hell out of here! Screw you! You know.
Yeah, who invited you, Trevor?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, he was kind of stalking what's her face, but by the end you feel a little less bad for her.
That part at the end where like Emma Roberts is revealed to be the killer, and she seemingly wins, and then so she's like beating herself up for like an extended period of time. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and then it kind of goes on afterwards, because you think, oh no, she won, she beat Sidney, but then you find out that Sidney's still alive, and then there's that fight scene in the hospital.
Right. I mean, it kind of ruined it because, like, I had already seen the trailers for Scream 5, so I was like, oh no, Sidney's dead, but I think at the time it probably had more weight in the time when it came out.
One thing I will say is for the first 4, like, I had already known who the killers were just through like internet discourse and stuff like that.
Okay.
So like there wasn't really a whole lot of surprise, but I still enjoyed the movies quite a lot.
Okay. I went in pretty blind. I don't think I knew who the killer was in any of them. I would think I maybe had some idea of like the killer in the first one, but I hadn't really read up on them much, so I just more knew of their existence, but I didn't really know anything about them. So that was kind of nice, being able to be surprised by the killer.
Okay.
And that is something I think this franchise does pretty well, is like they're a little better about keeping the villain secret and kind of misdirecting than other movies are. Like they purposefully make it seem like 5 different characters could be the killer, and you're not sure who it could be. And it's usually, sometimes it's the person you least expect, sometimes it's somebody you did kind of suspect, it's kind of not, they do a pretty good job keeping you on your toes when it comes to that. Apparently a lot of people, or at least some people, didn't really like the whole reveal at the end of the 4th one that Emma Roberts, I guess she was like her cousin. Yeah, she was her cousin that they never mentioned before. I guess she would have had to have been born after like the first 2 movies, I think, so that I guess that makes sense, but I think some people didn't like the reveal, I guess, but I mean, I didn't really care. I definitely did not suspect her. I was definitely surprised by that reveal.
Yeah, because the way they set it up, it was kind of like, is she going to be the main character of the franchise going forward, and it's like going to replace Sidney?
Right.
That's the way it kind of seemed, but then it kind of flipped that on its head.
Yeah, I will say I wasn't like super a huge fan of the end hospital fight scene. It felt like, I don't know if I say cheesier, but like it felt like it was like trying to take itself more serious than the other fights, and yet it was like just as like kind of like unbelievable.
Sure.
Like even in the end, the way she used like those paddles to like kill her, basically. Yeah. I mean, I guess technically you could, but it was just kind of like, really, But it's not like it ruined the movie.
Yeah. So that's everything I had about Part 4. Yeah. So we're gonna move on to the newest one.
Yeah.
One thing I will say is that this movie is talking more about like legacy sequels, and the 4th one was talking more about remakes. And so that, a lot of people had that confused. And so the analogy I like is like, a remake would be like Ghostbusters 2016, whereas a legacy sequel is more like the most recent film, Ghostbusters Afterlife.
That's a pretty
so
good
that's
analogy.
kind of the distinguishing factor between those two. Like if you want a more like horror related one, in 2005 they remade Halloween, and it was like a beat for beat remake of the original.
Right, the Rob Zombie one.
In 2018 it was more of a follow up. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And yeah,
the difference.
I do think it's funny that each movie, especially the later ones, kind of like tackle each like basically what's popular at the time. Because when Scream 4 came out, like reboots, remakes were really popular, whereas now, you know, the more legacy sequels are more popular, like with, you know, ever since the new Star Wars trilogy and everything.
No, I thought it's funny that you brought that up, because I think that Dewey's arc in this most recent film is very similar to Han Solo in The Force Awakens.
I was watching.
I don't think that's a coincidence.
I was watching the movie and I was like, for a second, I'm like, you know, I was kind of not a fan of Gale and Dewey being broken up, because I'm thinking like, man, this is a lot like, this is kind of a trope. This is a lot like Han Solo, you know, like, oh well, we have like the successful, you know, the couple splits. They have the successful female, and then like the husband ends up getting like a depressed old guy, you know. But now that you mention it probably is kind of intentional.
Yeah, and I do really like that trope in movies where it's like that old like sad man, and he has to like mentor the younger characters, and I think that they do that very well. Well, at the same time, like, it's still Dewey. He's still kind of jokey and stuff, like that one part where they're at the Meeks' house. He says like, you might be the killer, because that one cut pretty deep. That was funny. Like he's still Dewey, but he's definitely aged and grown since the last time we seen him.
They did it better than I expected. The whole like being, you know, like you said, it was still him, but you know, he's older now, and like the way they split up was like pretty like it made sense, I think, more so than probably a lot of other movies that have done the same kind of
like
trope.
Ever since the first movie, Gale has been very much career driven. And so it makes sense how like she moves to New York, but he's not really into that, so that's why they split up.
Yeah, exactly.
So going into this movie, I was like, I'm not really sure how meta this is gonna be. So I was kind of preparing myself to like not expect a whole lot of that, because this is the first one that's not directed by Wes Craven.
Right.
So I was kind of curious how they would do that, but honestly, like, this is the most meta of all of them.
Yeah, it's very meta. Like to the point where the killers are basically just fanboys of Stab that are mad about remakes and reboots.
For a while, I was like, we need to make a movie about like where it discusses like fandom, because with DC and Star Wars and Sonic and all this stuff that's going on, I was like, we really need to like explore that in a movie. And so I was really happy when they revealed that like, oh, it was the fans, the angry fans that did this because they wanted a better movie.
Right.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and he even says like, how can they call us toxic? How can love be toxic? As he's like holding a gun against somebody's head. It's pretty funny. And I think honestly, at least for me, this is probably the best like supporting cast.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, because like Jack Quaid's awesome. Like he's shown himself to be really good in The Boys, and he keeps getting good roles.
Yeah.
Melissa Barrera, she was really good in the Heights. I haven't really seen her in anything else, but she's good on that. Mikey Madison, haven't seen her in a lot, but it's kind of funny. She was actually in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And it's so funny. Yes. She dies the same exact way in both this movie and Once Upon a Time. Like she gets the crap kicked out of her, and then she gets burned to death. It was pretty funny. I was laughing in the theater, honestly, because of that. And then, of course, Jenna Ortega. She hasn't been in a whole lot, but she's good. And Dylan Minnette. He's just sort of like, you know, the high school guy of like this generation. You know, he's like almost 30, but he's still just gonna be a high school guy probably till he's like 35. I'm thinking, he's been in a lot of stuff like where he's a high schooler, like Don't Breathe, and obviously 13 Reasons Why, but pretty sure he's been in other stuff where he's a teenager.
Like, I really like, I'm not sure if you named their actors' names, but I really like the twins and Randy's niece and nephew. I really like.
Yeah, they were actually pretty good too.
Their dynamic.
Yeah, Mason Gooding was Chad, and Jasmine Savoy Brown was Mindy. They were actually good. And what I like about this movie is, like, everybody in it was pretty self-aware. You know, they weren't like, they were even calling each other out for doing stupid stuff, like going down to the basement by yourself. Yeah. And things like that. I found that really funny. And, you know, people are actually doing, like, I thought it was stupid that Chad went out to look for his girlfriend by himself. But, like, after a few seconds, he's like, nah, I'm out, and, like, starts to leave, you know, instead of, like, keep going further. Right. One thing that this movie does that the other ones don't really do is it puts more of an emphasis on like the whodunit
aspect of it. So like everyone's accusing everyone else of being the killer, and there's more emphasis on that mystery part of it.
Yeah, that is true. I didn't really think about that, but now that you mention it, they do spend a lot more time about that. I honestly, Nev Campbell, like, you know, the original cast wasn't in it quite as much as I expected because they are like on the poster and everything. I think my main beef with this movie, like, I didn't really have a problem with that because I think they had them in it enough that it felt organic and didn't make them feel shoehorned in.
Yeah.
And it's just the same thing with the new characters. It felt like they had enough of a connection where I was like, okay, this isn't just like, you know, random. You know, they even made Sam, Billy Loomis's daughter, which I thought was interesting. I didn't see that coming. And they even brought back Skeet Ulrich as like you know, Billy. The
de-aging is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it was. Like, I was looking at it, I was like, it's the same guy. He looks like different, but at the same time young. But yeah, they did a pretty good job with de-aging.
Yeah.
My only like beef, I think, that like really kind of turned me off, like only slightly, was like towards the end where they're all like so horribly injured and they're still just like fighting, which you could chalk that up to adrenaline and everything, to be honest. But at the same time, it was like, holy crap, how are these people not passed out yet, you know? And then I also thought it was a little dumb because they made, so what was it? Amber was the killer that killed Dewey in the hospital. But my main beef with that is that Ghostface seemed pretty big there. Like, he seemed more like Richie, you know, whereas Amber's like 5'2", you know, she's tiny. So that fact, you know, that was the only thing, and just the fact that she would be able to overpower Dewey, like, that was a little but, you know, whatever.
Yeah, you mentioned the original cast, and I think it makes sense that, like, Dewey's already in Woodsboro, but that as soon as he finds out there's another killing, he gets in contact with both of them, and he's like, don't come back. There's another, it's happening again, don't come back.
Right, and of course,
and that kind of makes sense. Yeah, but only after he dies, though. And that's why they come back.
That's true. Well, Gail was there from the beginning, but it was because her news station sent her there, basically. But yeah, that's right. Sidney didn't come back until, like, Dewey died.
Yeah, and I like that this is more of, like, a Dewey-centric movie.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones kind of just have more, a little bit towards the end. He was gonna be the one to die. It was pretty obvious, because... Yeah. I just didn't really see them killing off Sidney or Gail.
No, me neither. Especially considering they had like more going on with their life, which I did appreciate. They actually let Sidney like move on and get married and have kids and stuff. Like the rest of the franchise, even though she did have a best-selling book in 4, it felt like she never really truly was able to move on from everything.
One thing that's interesting is she mentions her husband's name is Mark.
Yeah.
And the directors actually confirmed that it's Mark Kincaid, the detective from Part 3, which was interesting.
Oh, okay. I kind of forgot. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Yeah, he seemed... Yeah, the guy... Oh, okay. Yeah. The guy, he was played by Patrick Dempsey. Right.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting. I did not catch that. That's pretty... Well, that's kind of cool. Yeah, from what I remember, they did kind of have like a bit of a spark in Scream 3. That would have been cool if Patrick Dempsey made like a brief cameo or like a brief appearance or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, so that's pretty much it for Scream. Oh, I call it Scream 5, but it's just Scream.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that. Well, they even it's really funny. They even like mentioned that in it because there was Scream 8, but instead of Stab 8, but instead of calling it Stab 8, they just called it Stab. You know, and even the people that were ripping it apart online were like, just call it Stab 8. We all know it's Stab 8.
Yeah, and it was funny because they mentioned that it was directed by Rian Johnson.
Oh, yeah, that was hilarious. And they were, the guy who did, the guy who did Last Jedi, that was funny.
Yeah,
I forgot about
that. That's pretty much it. I will say that it's funny watching people complain about this movie online because it's basically like you're the people that the movie's about. It's about fans getting angry.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's so funny seeing like a movie that's that self-aware, like kind of poking fun at obviously not very self-aware people. Honestly, I haven't seen a whole lot of hate for this movie, but then again, I haven't like looked a lot of places. I know some people were like annoyed at like the reveal or something, but it's like I don't know what you wanted. What do you want to be like? Surprise!
Right.
Dewey's still alive and the killer. I will say,
exactly.
I did like the kills. Like I felt like the kills felt more real in this than the other movies. Like the other movies, like they're stabbed. Ew, oh bummer. This one felt like damn, they're being brutalized. Like holy crap.
Yeah.
That was, which was almost like a funny almost a juxtaposition or a weird contrast, because the rest of the movie is like very self-aware, not quite a comedy, but kind of on the edge, and then all of a sudden the killers come and you're like, oh crap, this is a horror movie. That's right.
That's pretty much it. They're probably gonna make another one because this one made a bunch of money.
Probably.
I'm gonna go ahead and do my ranking. I think the worst one is I enjoy them all quite a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Which is surprising considering it's a 5-part series and they're all fairly enjoyable.
Well, and it's a horror franchise. Most of those are like very up and down.
Exactly.
Best,
so I'm gonna say probably my least favorite one is probably 2, and then the second one is 3. Although I enjoyed 3 quite a bit more than 2, and then 4, 5, and then the original. I think is probably still my favorite.
Okay, so your favorite's definitely the first one.
Okay. Yeah.
The first one, and then the new one, Scream 5 or Scream whatever, and then probably 2, 4, and 3. Honestly.
Okay.
Even though like. It's not that I don't like the third one. It's kind of weird, like, you know, because I like all of them. But if I had to rank them, that'd probably be what it would be. I think 1, 5, 2, 4, 3, I guess.
Yeah, because like I mean, it's all kind of like once you get like the first 2, I mean, 1 and 5 I really like, but the rest of them are kind of like they're all enjoyable, and so like it doesn't
it's
really,
harder to rank.
Yeah,
there isn't like a huge gap between like. You know, a huge gap in quality, I would say.
So that's the Scream video. Comment down below with your ranking. If you've seen the new one, what do you think about that? Like, comment, subscribe. The socials are linked in the description. And we'll see you next time. Peace out.
Thanks for watching.